Hello everyone and welcome back to another tutorial. Today is a Misty Forest per usual. I love Misty Forest paintings. They're my favorite thing to paint, but I thought I would change it up by doing wet on wet and adding some birds using some masking fluid. Now, I don't typically sketch my paintings out beforehand. However, it is a good practice to get into, and it may save you some frustrations down the road as far as getting your composition right to start. So because we all know watercolor once dry can be hard to manipulate to change it up, so might not be a bad idea to sketch out your painting. Now I'm using some masking fluid for these birds because I am going to drop in quite a bit of paint throughout my page. I had intended to save some of the white, but honestly, I don't think it matters. You can try this if you want. You don't need to. So I don't think it mattered in the end is what I'm saying. But of course, go ahead and try it. And be warned, that stuff stinks really bad. So I don't use it that often, but it's always fun to play around and, just experiment with different things and see how it turns out. All right, so to make this a wet on wet watercolor painting, you've got to wet your entire page, which is what I've done here. And before I drop that paint in, I want to make sure that my paper is wet. The colors that I'm using is Pearling Green and Lunar Black to darken it up, and I am just placing my paint where I want the fuzzy misty background to be. Now this paint is going to dry much lighter, so you will see me moving the paint around, adding a bit more water, and then continuing to add more paint. I am just playing around, getting a feel of how it is spreading and moving, and seeing if I want to drag the paint up a little bit, make it softer towards the sky, because my idea of when I'm looking at this painting is that I'm looking kind of dead on at a mountain. So I will have some of that green up at the top, but it's much lighter because, maybe the fog is more dense and heavier. So it gets a little bit lighter. So I'm not envisioning a sky here. So that's my point. And I am now where I made these little mound lines, placing where the base of the trees are, and then wanting a little bit of that mist to go through there. So any of that white space is where I'm envisioning mist. And by having that paper wet, it's going to feather out. And then as I continue to manipulate the paint by moving the paint around in different areas with my brush and adding a bit more water, it's going to create this really soft effect. You can do what I've done here. I decided to tip my paper because I wanted that paint to work with gravity and to have the paint move up the page. So, and then I do that, and of course I do my little lines with the side of my brush for tree effect. I've been doing this lately and I really love it. There's so many different ways how to paint, and it's just so much fun to experiment. And I do have a particular style that I like to do, but it is really enjoyable to test your skills and to do different things, because you just never know what you're going to get as you continue to experiment. So lately, I have been loving using the side of my brush. Now, this is a size 12 long round brush, and for my large Misty Forest, I always go for this brush. I love this brush. It's by Aqua Elite by Princeton, and it's the Aqua Elite series. So anyway, highly recommend it. I love it. And I moved my paper back over. Keep in mind, my paper is still wet as I continued to make those lines. Now, as you can see, my paper has dried. So my paper is dry and the paint has gotten much lighter, so I am dropping in some light values of paint directly on dry paper and manipulating that paper around to where it will blend by adding some more water. I tried to get my water jar in this shot. I'm still playing around with placement of my materials when filming, because I do think it is helpful to see your water and see your paint. So sometimes I can't get it all because then I also want a close-up of the painting. So at least that's what I want as a viewer, but let me know what you all prefer to see. I'll change it up, see if I get some answers, and see what you all like, because I definitely want to give a good educational experience, learning experience, with a video that you might find interesting, that you want to apply in your own watercolor practice. So, moving on, I am adding some more paint here, and while the paper is dry, overall, though I did mist it so I could have the dark, because I'm adding such darker values of pigment compared to a moment ago where it was lighter, I wanted the paper to be misted to help me out, and I'm also adding it in several places, so I don't want any hard lines. I really like a very soft, smooth transition when it comes to the mist. So that's why I sprayed it. And I just love spraying my paper. Sometimes I can get carried away and the paint will just go all over the place. So, you know, if you spray your paper, you just gotta get a feel for your own painting and your own you know, the own wetness of your paper, and that just takes practice and exploring and playing around. So don't be afraid is what I'm saying. But I continue to add darker values of paint and just darkening it up. So now I would love to go back in time and to make this darker, but I didn't, and I do think it still turned out beautiful, but I really do love very dark and contrast rich paintings. They just catch my eye. And let me know in the comments below, do you guys like rich and dark contrast paintings? Hopefully if you've been watching my videos, you can see that I love green, and you must like green too if you're still watching. It's one of my favorite colors, but I do need to start incorporating some other colors for these videos. So I plan on having some more spring forest landscapes, because spring is around the corner, even though in my area it is full-on winter. We are having one of the most wildest winters in history. So, but it's fun because I love winter. I love winter so much. But anyway, I'm doing my trees here. If you want a more detailed description of my trees, I say it in every video because I pretty much include trees in all of my videos. You can go ahead and click the video in the description below. And there are so many different ways to do trees. I also plan on doing different landscapes with different style of trees, you know, just to spice it up. And I love painting different style of trees. So now to spread out that bottom to make it blend in, I just took a bit more water and manipulated that paint around. So of course, the more water that you add, the you know, your paint becomes a bit lighter because it is spreading and moving around, and it's becoming more dilute. So just keep that in mind. And I wanted, when it comes to my trees, lots of depth. So you will see where I sprayed, some of the area is very soft and some of it is very dark. And that's just depending on those droplets when you spray your water bottle, which I just love. And as far as like the motion, I tend to be able to get this effect with my branches because of the brush I'm using and because of the texture of the paper. So I'm not able to easily get these branches if I use say like Canson XL paper. I can get it a little bit with the Etcher Lab sketchbook, which I really do like, so it's a bit more affordable than the paper I'm using today, which is the Arches cold press watercolor paper. It's my favorite, but when you want a very easy tree effect, just this paper, because of the texture on the page, just grabs the paint. And when you mist your paper before you lay down your trees, it grabs it, and then the paint hits the droplets of water, and then it just it's just magic. It's just magic. Now, maybe you don't like these trees, but for me, I love, love, love these trees, and just trees in general using that paper. So just keep that in mind. It always depends. And I continue to add a bit more paint, and I'll drag it down and just play with it, and then I add lighter values of trees in the back. And my deepest apologies for how overexposed the video is right now. I tried to lower the brightness in editing, but it didn't look great with the colors. And honestly, because of our weather, the clouds are they're just having lots of fun with my filming. It was quite a battle, so apologies there, but hopefully you can still get the idea of what's happening. Now, the paper at this point is dry, so I'm dropping in some more color, and you can see there's quite hard lines right there, but like I said before, to blend those out, add a bit more water, dab off the water. I use a microfiber cloth and a paper towel. The microfiber cloth soaks up the water quite nicely, so I like to use that. And I try to be mindful of not wasting too many paper towels, but play around with what works. If you end up doing a microfiber cloth, then do keep in mind that sometimes you can get little hair particles or dust, and it can end up in your brush. But I've never had too much of an issue, but to keep that in mind, that is a possibility that could happen. But this is definitely a stage where you can just continue to play around, and you can see it definitely got lighter. So now that it is fully dried, I am rubbing away all of the masking fluid. You can see that the birds are a little white. Honestly, I envisioned painting seagulls, which you can find over the forest. And I wanted the white background, and then to paint in some, I almost said yellow, some black wings. So the birds didn't quite work out how I had intended them to be, but that's totally fine. It happens. But as far as the birds, they're really simple, and they're all over the place, and that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I can't wait to see you in my next video. Leave a comment what you liked, what you don't like, and especially what you want to see in future videos. All right, everyone, take care.